I start out with my tomatoes. If I get a plant that's 10 inches long, I'll cut all the leaves off way up the stem. I won't leave much of it, maybe that much of it sticking out of the ground, and all that stem will take root. And this one particular spot here, I have, over the years, when I clean out from under my rabbit cages, I put it on here in early spring or late fall. It plowed under and it rots in there. My opinion, it's the best compost you can get for tomatoes. I mean, seeing, believing. We'll go walk over here on the other side. This is my pepper right here, cayenne pepper. Last year I had bell peppers here, and they were that high, and I had bell peppers like that. This was a volunteer. Now this one right here, when they start growing good, I'll cut the suckers off the bottom. They may be that tall. I'll cut them off and put them in, preferably rainwater. If you can't get rainwater, I'll get creek water. And I'll leave them in that water until they start rooting good, and then I'll set them out. I'll show you another row back yonder. I've got almost a whole row. It was from just cutting the suckers off of these. This is one of the suckers. It's full of blooms. It's got tomatoes on it. It started from the cutting off of one of these. These here are celebrities. These big tall ones back here, they're the Rutgers, the ones we used to raise years ago when I was a kid. Somebody told me one time, I told them I had tomatoes 5 foot tall. They said, "You're crazy, they don't grow that tall." Well, seeing's believing. And I'm a firm believer in that rabbit manure, because I've not watered this garden, not the first time. And I always felt like if I started watering it, I'd have to keep watering it, and that chlorine's not good for the plants anyway. So this is what I got. I thank the Lord for it. He's the one who blesses it. But anyway, we picked this pepper today, and we canned 9 quarts of this cayenne pepper. And these things grew so fast, I take concrete reinforcement wire and make the baskets out of them. And it keeps me busy keeping them inside that basket. And then after a while they get so big I can't keep them in there. They outgrow them faster than I can do anything with them. But they still lean over the top and they still make tomatoes. Look here. All these tomatoes in here. And this is my okra. I didn't get as much of that compost back here as I did on the other end, so it shows. And this is the first time I ever done my cucumbers this way. And we picked a half a bushel off that thing this morning. I go back here, I'm gonna show you back here my ones I cut from suckers. And I've not put the manure, the compost or the rabbit manure back here like I have up here. I did after I set the plants out and they started growing. I put some around it. I believe that holds moisture, so they're looking good. They're just not as big as the ones that's had all this on them for years. My potatoes have done all they can want to do. They done made. I'm just waiting on the September weed out of them occasionally. This is a brandy wine. I've got 3 different kinds. I got one guy that I ain't sure about the name of it, but that one's called a brandy wine. This one here It's a real meaty tomato. I really don't know the name of it. I got the seed from a guy years ago. He passed away now, but I kept the seed and keep them growing. My beans is done dried up. But they did good considering not having the more rain what we've had. But now this right here, these 4 here I started from seed. And you can tell the sun's getting to them, this heat. But these right here, this one didn't do any good for some reason. I don't know, a man ought to have had enough root on it when I set it out. But the rest of these, they started from cuttings off of these others, and they got tomatoes on them, so that's the way I've done it for years. You can tell where we've not had as much compost. You can tell the difference in how tall they get. And I didn't sucker them as much as I did the others. I've had them in the past. There'd be so many tomatoes on it that the basket couldn't hold them. The vine couldn't hold them. They just collapsed. Fall down in the basket.
How long have you been gardening, Papaw?
Well, I'll soon be 74-year-old, and I can't remember the first time I started hoeing corn. It's been so far back. I think I was about 7 or 8 years old when I started hoeing corn. My grandpa taught me how to hoe corn when I was just a kid. I always had a big garden when we was home. When we was kids, we had a big garden. Daddy worked all the time, and Mommy canned everything we brought in, so it stuck with me through the years. Here's some. Right here's one of them that's collapsed in the basket. So many tomatoes, they just fell down on the ground. And another thing I do, when they start growing, the first blooms I pinch them off. And sometimes I'll go through the second time they bloom. I give it time to get a good rootstock on it, and then you can see what you got. You got plenty of tomatoes, but like I said, I've not put the compost on this like I did that little spot up there, and it makes a big difference. And we ain't had no rain, so I did put a little bit of compost around these after they got started growing, and we get good heavy dews up here. Back in this holler, back in between the mountains. We get a lot of heavy dew, and sometimes we come out of a morning and you can see where it's dropped down around the base of the plant. I guess that helps. When we can't get the rain, that's the next best thing. I hope everybody enjoys them as much as I do. I'd leave the house and my wife and want to know where I was at. And one of the kids say, he's over in the garden. She said, I can't keep him out of the garden. So I piddle in it all the time, but my problem is I hate to see fall come and the tomatoes are gone because you get used to eating them. You don't want to do without them. But anyway, I hope you learned something from this. I know a lot of people sometimes are afraid to pull the blooms off, and I've had people tell me It's afraid to cut the suckers off the bottom, but if you don't cut the suckers off the bottom, when they start growing good, it takes the strength away from the vine, and the vine don't get as big, and you don't have as big of tomatoes. That's my theory. That's the way I feel about it. So I've been doing it for years, and it's worked. So if it works, don't fix it. Just let it alone. I thank you.